Good evening, everyone. Hi, hello. Welcome to the first annual FAST conference. Let's get it up. This is exciting. This is the start of something big that will continue to happen year after year here at Calvin. My name is Tom Hartzell. I am the Campus Sustainability Program Coordinator and have had the privilege of coordinating this event with my colleague Katie Van Dyke. She's in the back and she's waving. If you need any help throughout the whole weekend, find one of the two of us. We can point you in the right direction. And I just want to say, wow, this is amazing. This is something that we've been dreaming about for over a year, and it's here, it's happening. And it's really humbling to see how God has brought all of the pieces together to make this conference happen this year. And I'm also just feeling really grateful for everyone who has played a role in helping us to come together this year. Really grateful to our partners around campus. The Calvin Cohorts program is underwriting tonight's keynote speaker. So we're really grateful for all of the support that Calvin Cohorts has given this event. This is actually an initiative of the Sustainability Fellows cohort, which is one of our newest cohorts here at Calvin. Any Sustainability Fellows in the room, make some noise. Louder. You're killing me. They're here, they're just humble. Also really grateful to the Calvin Ecosystem Preserve and Native Gardens that has provided a lot of resources to help us pull this together. And they will be hosting the after party tonight starting at 9 o'clock. Make sure you make your way over there for s'mores and apple cider and all kinds of good fun. I'm also super grateful for the community support that we have for this event. We have a lot of sponsors from the community that have helped us make this happen, and they will all be having exhibit tables tomorrow. Make sure you visit them, say thank you for their support, and also check out the information and opportunities that they'll have to share with you all, as well as other exhibitors and a lot of presenters from local organizations coming to share their expertise and knowledge about all kinds of different sustainability-related practices and issues, and it's going to be really rich. So I'm grateful for all of their involvement, but I'm especially grateful for all of you, because this is a conference for students. Our total intent here is to give students skills and information and an action plan that can help you make a real difference in sustainability on your campuses this year. So I hope and I pray that this weekend is a time of inspiration for you, connection with other peers, some ideas for taking action, and also hope. I hope that you take away hope from this weekend. Because as we look at the world, there are broken pieces, but the good news is that there are things that we can do to be repairers of those broken pieces. We can be involved in the renewal of this good earth. And the reason that we selected FAST for the name of this conference is because that can help us remember that there are things that we need to do quickly. We need to be fast in pursuing sustainability, but also things that we need to abstain from or stop doing as we pursue sustainability. And it's also a really helpful acronym to remind us that we are all here to be faithfully advancing sustainability together. So thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to introduce our keynote speaker tonight. His name is Jacob Van der Roost. He is from West Michigan, a West Michigan local, and a graduate of Saugatuck High School and Hope College. I know Hope College is in the room. There we go. And while at Hope, Jacob was really involved in creating a lot of really impactful sustainability changes and action. And he's continuing to do that good work as a graduate student at Colorado State University. But he is here with us tonight, and I can't think of a better person to kick off the first FAST conference. So without further ado, please welcome Jacob Vander Roost.
Thank you, Tom. As Tom said, my name is Jacob Vander Roost, and I'm very honored to be speaking here today at the 2023 FAST Conference. Before I begin, can we please give a round of applause to Katie Van Dyke and Tom for organizing this in the first place? They put a lot of effort towards making this happen. I'd also like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend this conference, a conference that's focusing on a very important topic, a topic that will impact all of our lives, and that is climate change and the climate conference. So for today's presentation, I'm going to describe a little bit about who I am, describe some of the work that I've done related to sustainability, but most importantly, focus on ways that we can all get more involved to promote sustainability within our communities. And so through this conference, we hope to give you the skills necessary to have an impact and make either our schools, communities, and beyond more sustainable. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So as Tom mentioned, I grew up in southwest Michigan, particularly in a small town called South Haven, which is located right here on the Mitten. And this is a fantastic place to grow up. During the summers, I would spend most of my time riding my bike around town, swimming in Lake Michigan, going on camping trips with my family pictured here. This is me, probably 6 years old, being very surprised that I got caught in a rainstorm. During the fall, I would run across town, running on my cross-country team. This is me in middle school, or get lost in the woods of Michigan as I backpacked with my older brother. And then during the winters, I'd play for countless of hours in the snow in Michigan. And so spending that much time outside was really, really valuable, and helped kind of plant that eventual seed in my interest for sustainability and environmentalism. And for high school, I graduated from Saugatuck High School in 2017, where I ran cross country, sang in some musicals, and participated in choirs. You can see in the pictures on screen there. But most importantly, it was during this time that I started to become fascinated by science. I thought my chemistry and biology classes were really, really interesting. For example, in my chemistry classes, I would conduct chemistry experiments, synthesizing different molecules and making different crystals. And during my biology classes, we would study the natural areas and watersheds surrounding Saugatuck. So this is a picture of a pond that we would consistently sample to see how healthy are these ecosystems. And so that was really cool to actually start studying the natural world as a high schooler. But little did I know at the time, though, the natural world on a global scale was changing due to climate change. But I had only heard about global warming or the climate crisis through the news. I graduated in 2017, which isn't that long ago, and we didn't talk about climate change in our classes. So a topic this important, of this size and magnitude, wasn't discussed in our courses. So at this stage of life, climate change wasn't something that I really thought about too much. But after I graduated from Saugatuck, I attended Hope College, where I studied chemistry and geology. That's what I studied when I was an undergraduate student. So this is a profoundly nerdy picture of me in the chemistry lab doing some chemistry experiments. And I actually ran on the Hope College cross-country team where we competed against Calvin University. But out of respect for the hosts, I'll refrain from saying "Go Dutch" in my presentation, out of respect for Calvin. But similarly to high school, I didn't think about climate change too much during this time. I was really kind of focused on my academics and my athletics. But that changed when I attended a scientific conference during my sophomore year of college. So this conference was specifically the Geological Society of America conference. And so this is a picture of myself, 19 years old, a sophomore in college, being very terrified at the poster presentation that I was giving. But while I was also at this conference, I attended presentations and talks given by climate scientists and other people who were studying climate change. And when listening to these talks, this was the first instance in which the consequences and ramifications of climate change became very real, very stunning, and frankly a little bit frightening. I'd like to share a little bit of the information that they discussed while I was at this conference a few years ago as a sophomore at Hope College. So there was a lot of discussion on water scarcity and how that can become worse due to climate change. Growing up in Michigan, I never thought of water as some finite resource. You know, we're literally surrounded by lakes, rivers, and streams. You just kind of turn on the faucet and water starts coming out. But for many people in the world, that is simply not the case. According to the World Health Organization, water scarcity impacts about 3.2 billion people, which is about 40% of the world's population. That's an awful lot. And approximately 700 million people are at risk of being displaced due to drought by 2030. And to put this number in context, 700 million, that's approximately 2 United States worth of people just getting up and moving because they don't have access to readily available water. So because of climate change, in the near future, something as simple as a glass of water, something I certainly take for granted, might not be as readily obtainable because of climate change. At this conference, there's also a lot of discussion about heat waves and how those are becoming worse due to the warming temperatures on average of the Earth. Between the year 2000 and 2016, the number of people exposed to heat waves increased by approximately 125 million. Now, heat waves, they can negatively impact our health. They can make drought and water scarcity more severe and worse. And they also require us to use more energy and resources just to literally keep ourselves cool and cool our environments. And so as the temperature of the Earth steadily increases due to climate change, problems such as heat waves will become more prevalent. And those increasing temperatures due to climate change contribute to other problems as well. For example, wildfires. Now, wildfires are an important part and very beneficial to forests that are adapted to wildfires. But because of climate change, they're becoming larger, more frequent, and more intense, burning at hotter temperatures. And so I currently live in Colorado, and this is a picture from a nearby town only 2 years ago, and when we were experiencing the largest recorded wildfire in Colorado's history. And this past wildfire season has been quite concerning. I'm sure you've heard about the Maui fires in Hawaii, some of the deadliest wildfires to ever occur in recorded United States history. And Canada just had its worst wildfire season in history in terms of total acreage burned. So much smoke was released from these wildfires that they traveled thousands of miles over here in Michigan where they impacted our air quality. So even issues and problems that are occurring literally thousands of miles away can impact us all the way over here as well. And as I mentioned, I currently live in Colorado, where we're no strangers to wildfire activity. The 20 largest wildfires in Colorado's history have all occurred in the past 20 years. And so as a sophomore in college, when I heard about this information, not gonna lie, I was quite stunned. I was quite floored, and frankly a little bit scared at the possibilities of these things getting worse. But at the same time, I felt this profound sense of purpose and a lot of motivation as well. As someone who admired science and wanted to be a scientist one day, the data were very clear that we have an issue going on, but there are things that we can do to address this. Science was very clear with making that very transparent. But it's not just only science indicating that we should do something to address climate change. At the same time I was at this conference, I took a class called Earth and Ethics at Hope College, which was taught by Dr. Stephen Belma-Prediger, pictured there, where we discussed various religious reasons for why we should care for the earth. And in this particular class, we read his book called For the Beauty of the Earth, A Christian Vision for Creation Care. And in this book, we discussed various biblical reasons for why we ought to care for the earth. For example, Genesis 2:15 indicates that we should serve and protect the earth, specifically cultivate and care for it. And Leviticus 25:4 indicates that the seventh year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land. And this indicates that we should not take advantage of the earth, we should not exploit its resources, but allow the natural world to rest, and that we ought to respect the natural resources that it provides us. And this intersection of religion and environmentalism goes beyond just what we learn in the classroom. For example, a few years ago, in 2015, Pope Francis actually released a book titled Encyclical on Climate Change and Inequality, on Care for Our Common Home, in which Pope Francis argues that we need to address climate change and start taking the climate crisis more seriously. And I'd like to share a couple of very powerful quotes, particularly from this book. For the college students in the audience, you should never do this during a presentation, put a huge block of text on the screen, but I want to emphasize this quote because it's very, very powerful. So bear with me as I read this. A very solid scientific consensus indicates that we are presently witnessing a disturbing warming of the climatic system. A number of scientific studies indicate that most global warming in recent decades is due to the great concentrations of greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, methane, nitrogen oxides, and others released mainly as a result of human activity. And now this is not a quote from a climate scientist or an atmospheric chemist. This was written and released by Pope Francis. Never have we so hurt and mistreated our common home as we have in the last 200 years. Yet all is not lost. Human beings, while capable of the worst, are also capable of rising above themselves, choosing again what is good, and making a new start. And so I advocate that if you're interested in this intersection of environmentalism and religion, to check out both of these books. Very well written and very, very informative. And so the scientific data that I briefly discussed today and some of the religious doctrine that I've described, both of these things are drawing the same conclusion. And that conclusion is that we need to care for the earth and that the clock is ticking. So going back to 19-year-old Jacob at the poster session, after learning about all this information, the thoughts that were going through my mind were, how could I not take this seriously? How could I turn my back on this? How could I ignore probably the biggest existential threat that'll face our generation? How could I not take that seriously? But at the same time, I thought to myself, could I even make a difference? As a college student, could I even have any semblance of an impact? And also, more frighteningly, is it too late to do something about this? The one thing I really want to emphasize to you all today, that's very important, and it's true, is that the future has not been written yet. These projections of where the world is going, those things haven't happened, and those things don't have to happen. These problems are not out of our control. We can do something about it, and we must do something about it. And so, as a 19-year-old sophomore student in college, I started small, and I got to work. Fortunately, Hope College has this excellent program called Hope Advocates for Sustainability. Now, this is a group of students on campus that start projects to make Hope College more sustainable and more eco-friendly. And so, as a sophomore in college, applying for my junior year, I eagerly applied to this position. I had no experience with event planning. I'd never started a project on campus before. I was profoundly underqualified, but I knew that climate change was something that I needed to get involved in because I wanted to make a difference. So I eagerly applied and fortunately was accepted into this program. And one of the first things that I wanted to start was a Less Meat Monday program on campus. Now, for those that don't know, certain foods require different amounts of resources and emit different amounts of greenhouse gases during their production. And generally, plant-based foods require less water and emit fewer greenhouse gases when they're being produced compared to animal products. So from an environmental point of view, there are many benefits for eating primarily more plant-based foods. And so I actually proposed this idea to the dining services team at Hope College as a way to maybe promote sustainability within our dining halls. I'm not gonna lie, going into that meeting, I was quite frightened and terrified. I was 20 years old at the time, advocating that we should make a change in the dining halls at Hope College. But fortunately, I knew why this was important. I knew that it would make a difference, and I came to that meeting prepared, knowing what I was gonna say, what questions I was gonna ask. And fortunately, they liked my idea and agreed to support it. And so they made promotional material for this new initiative that was gonna happen in the dining halls. We would still serve meat on Mondays, but offer more plant-based foods and prioritize the benefits that plant-based foods have for protecting the environment. Now, the only downside is I started working on this in March of 2020, and if you don't remember what happened in that particular month of that particular year, a global pandemic started because of COVID-19. So during my time at Hope College, this project was postponed, but everything was in place for it to happen, and I was so surprised and fulfilled by all the support that I got from the faculty members at Hope College. And so going into my senior year, I wanted to build upon this momentum, so I became the co-president of Hope Advocates for Sustainability, where I got involved in different projects on campus. So this is a picture of me from our Earth Jam event, which is a concert series at Hope College. And in between performances, we talk about sustainability and ways to make our campus more eco-friendly. So this is me actually giving a presentation about the intersection of music and sustainability, using some songs by Marvin Gaye as an example where he advocates that we should care for the earth. So that was a really fun way to discuss sustainability in a more creative way. We helped organize beach cleanup events along the lakeshore of Michigan. Unfortunately, there is often a lot of plastic pollution in that area, in such a beautiful area. So we organized beach cleanups to kind of help clean up some of that plastic pollution. We had various events on campus. This is one of our more popular ones called the Plantathon. You can see a line of Hope College students stretching in the background. Had about maybe over 100 students pull up to this event where we passed out plants, reusable silverware, reusable bag giveaways, and offering other sustainable products such like that. I was also involved in some community discussions at Hope College. This is a picture of me on a panel discussing plant-based diets and ways to decrease our plastic consumption. And so this is me in the corner right there. And this is actually Dr. Stephen Boma-Prediger, who taught my Earth and Ethics class. So I was very excited to be on stage with him. And then lastly, during my senior year at college, I had the opportunity to give a TED Talk through the TEDx Hope College program. So I gave a TED Talk describing the benefits of plant-based foods. That's one of the things I really fixated on during my time at Hope College. And so if there's one thing that I can summarize, this whole experience working with Hope Advocates for Sustainability for 2 years over college, that experience can be summarized in one sentence. And that sentence is that you can make a difference. Because right now, you guys are at schools where there are professors and faculty members. They are there to support you. And so if you have ideas that you think could be beneficial for campus, they can happen, and they can really make a difference. Now, it's important to keep in mind that these things aren't necessarily easy. It takes a lot of communication, a lot of planning, a lot of coordination. And tomorrow I'm actually leading a workshop designed to help give you those skills to make a difference on campus. So I advocate that you check that out if you're interested in developing skills like that. And so I graduated from Hope College in spring of 2021 with a degree in chemistry and a newfound passion for sustainability. And so I wanted to fuse those two interests in a graduate program. So I am now a PhD graduate student studying environmental chemistry at Colorado State University. For those that don't know, this school is located about an hour north of Denver in northern Colorado. And I picked this school for a couple of reasons. One is that there are multiple environmental chemistry labs on campus. So these are research labs that seek to address and solve environmental problems by using chemistry and looking at things through a chemical lens. So as a chemistry student, that was very appealing. There's a lot of focus on sustainability as well, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But more selfishly, I wanted to go somewhere where I could learn how to rock climb. And so this is a picture of me rock climbing in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. And I know that tomorrow there's going to be an optional rock climbing activity, so I'll certainly be there. I'll be happy to teach any of you guys how to rock climb if you're interested. But to give you an idea of what I do as a graduate student, I specifically study how wildfires impact soil chemistry. So as I mentioned before, wildfires are a natural process. They're beneficial to adapted ecosystems. But because of climate change, these wildfires are getting larger, more frequent, and burning with more intensity. And so it's important to understand, how do these wildfires impact our ecosystems? And I specifically study, how does the chemistry of the soil change after a wildfire? So to study this, I conduct simulated wildfire burns, which are these two pictures right here. I take a big steel container, fill it with soil, and then ignite pine wood on top of it to simulate a wildfire, pictured here. And then after the fires burn, I sample the soil and see, how does the chemistry change? Now you might be wondering yourself, Jacob, why are you spending all this time literally burning buckets of dirt for your PhD research? But the reason for this is we want to better understand how forests recover after wildfires. Because in order for microbes to come back after a wildfire, in order for plants to regrow, they use the chemicals and the molecules in the soil as a food source. So if we want to better predict how forests are going to recover after a wildfire, it's important to understand how that chemistry of the soil changes, because that fuels all of that regrowth. So happy to talk about this more in depth during the conference, but just wanted to give you a little idea of what I do as a graduate student. Excuse me. And at the same time, I want to continue my passion for sustainability in graduate school. But unfortunately, when I got there, there were no student groups for graduate students for ways for us to get involved with sustainability in the school and the broader community. So what I did is I contacted the School of Global Environmental Sustainability at Colorado State University and told them that I wanted to start a new student group specifically for graduate students so that we could continue to promote sustainability at CSU, Colorado State University, and in the broader community. And they really liked that idea, and they helped support it. And so now I run a student group of graduate students, some of us are pictured here, where we do sustainability community outreach. So this bottom picture is a group of graduate students up front, and this is an audience of high school students. So we go to local high schools and describe the research that we do related to sustainability and discuss different career options and career paths within the realm of environmental protection as a way to kind of disseminate information and do some public outreach. So we do that in the student group. And additionally, I've helped organize a few climate summits at Colorado State University. So for the past couple of years, over 200 high school students have come to Colorado State University where they learn about climate change. They come to our institution and listen to various talks and presentations given by researchers at our college that study climate change. These are two pictures of all the high school students, and this is me standing there in the corner participating in the event, which was really cool to see so many students involved in this kind of thing. And so after about 4 years of fairly active work in promoting sustainability, both at my undergraduate college, my graduate university, and in the broader community, what I have realized is that you can have an impact. Even with something as large and nebulous as climate change, big issues, big problems, you can do things that can have a positive impact. And what's really encouraging is that our peers, people in our age group, are the ones that are leading the fight against the climate crisis. I'd like to give a couple of examples of that right now. Take Haven Coleman, for example. She grew up in Denver, and when she was 13 years old, she started her own nonprofit organization called U.S. Youth Climate Strike, which seeks to spread awareness about climate change and get more young people involved. So when she was 13 years old, she was already running her own business, which is awesome. There is also Jerome Foster II. When he was 19 years old, he became the youngest advisor to the White House, where he worked in the Biden administration, helping them with their climate change and environmental policies. So when he was only 19 years old, he was working in probably the most important building in the United States, the White House, fighting against the climate crisis. And a last example is that a group of students in Montana actually sued the Montanan government because they believed that the government was not protecting their right to a safe and clean environment, and they actually won that lawsuit, which is insane. So it's awesome to see people like us making a huge difference, but there's also another group of students that can do a lot against the fight towards climate crisis, and that is all of you. You can make a difference. It can happen. You can all have an impact. Now, it's important to acknowledge that we all necessarily can't drop everything and start fighting the climate crisis. We don't necessarily have time to start our own businesses or file a lawsuit. We have exams to study for. We have part-time and full-time jobs you have to go to. In addition, we have to figure out what we're going to do after we graduate college and what that will look like. But fortunately, there are things that all of us can do that can truly have an impact, and that's what we're going to focus on for the remainder of this talk. What can we collectively do? And so to do so, we need to start brainstorming some things that we can do. So we have a little bit of an activity here that I would like all of you to participate in. If you would, please partner up with someone next to you. If you don't know who they are, please introduce yourself to them. And brainstorm ways to promote sustainability and address climate change on these different levels. We're going to categorize this to make it a little bit easier. Individual action, what you can do personally to be more sustainable, with your family and friends, starting in a small social sphere like that, at your school, whether it's Hope College, Calvin University, or beyond, in your broader community, as well as in your state and beyond. And please get very creative for this last one. Think big. And so if you guys, we're going to spend just a couple minutes doing this activity. Jot down some notes on a piece of paper or write down your notes on your phone, and let's take a couple minutes to see what we come up with for a second here. And then if you find yourself coming up short with a couple ideas, feel free to get in groups of 4 if you'd like as well and see what you guys came up with. And then we'll all come back together in a couple of minutes. So feel free to share ideas and answers. Very excited to see what you guys come up with. Spend 1 more minute, and then we'll all bring it back together. So 1 more minute of brainstorming. We can go ahead and bring it back together. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go through each individual category and see what kind of answers you guys came up with, and then I'll describe some of the things that I wanted to bring up for these different categories as well. So would someone be brave enough to raise their hand? Tom's got a microphone which we'll pass around. Specifically, let's first focus on individual action. What can we just do on an individual basis to be more sustainable? Any ideas that we came up with during that time period? Yeah, right here. Yeah, that'll work too, yeah. Recycle more? Awesome. That's a good idea. I like that. Over here. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, right here. Shop secondhand. Awesome. For what particularly? Any ideas or? Everything. Okay, I like that. That's a good answer to that question. Any other things that we can do on an individual basis? Let's get one more. Yeah, right here. Oh my goodness. Let's grab that. My goodness. Ugh. Yeah. Eat animal products. Great answer. That's a good answer. So, yeah. And what is awesome is I'm glad that none of you just took the easy answer and just say like social media. because while this can be helpful, spreading information, sharing awareness about climate change, in order to solve this problem, we're going to need to do a lot more. I mean, this is the climate crisis we're talking about. It's not going to be solved by posting something on Instagram or sharing a video on TikTok. So we need to be a lot more ambitious than that, but it seems like you guys are, which is really encouraging. A couple of examples of things that I do, we've actually named a couple of them. One is biking to work. So I bike to graduate school every single day, to and from my apartment, and I often do it with my college buddies, which is a lot of fun. I've talked about this a lot already, but I do try to eat more of a plant-based diet. So this is a picture of my shopping cart literally from last weekend. See a lot of fruits and vegetables in there. And another thing that I did during college, which is a little strange, is I actually collected all of the plastic waste that I produced for an entire year, because I wanted to have like a visual representation of how much waste I was producing. So everything that wasn't recycled was placed in this container. And so this is a picture of me about maybe like 2 months into that challenge or so. So that's another thing that's a little strange, but that you can do to kind of help visually represent how much waste that we produce. All right, let's move on to the next one. How about what we can do with family and friends? And so for reference, this is a picture of my family. Here's myself here, my older brother Nathan, my 2 sisters Molly and Adriana, my mother Carla, and then my dad Jim was taking the photo. So what can we do with friends and family? What did you guys come up for that one? Yeah, right here. Carpooling, awesome. Like just going to, like, would that be something you could do while going to college or going to events or? Yeah. That's an excellent idea. I love that. The other things, family and friends, what can you do with them? Yeah, over here.
You can do clothing swaps.
Clothing swaps. How does a clothing swap work? What is that?
Get your friends together, everybody brings things that they're looking to get rid of, don't really want anymore, and they get a new one by somebody else.
That's awesome. I love that idea. Excellent. And other things, family and friends. We can have 2 more ideas. Yeah, right here.
Maybe starting a compost for your house.
Starting a compost, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great way to help reduce food waste. So in addition to recycling for helping reduce plastic waste, that's a great way for food waste as well. Love that answer. How about one more for family and friends? What can we do on that smaller level? We're getting larger here, but still kind of small. How about one more thing? Yeah.
Learn and teach skills like home cooking and making clothes, things like that.
Yeah, that's excellent, because then you don't have to go and buy new things. That's a great answer. I'd like to share one quick anecdote about in terms of how I've interacted with family and friends in this level. So a couple of years ago, this is a picture of myself and my older brother Nathan. We actually started eating more plant-based foods at the same time, but it was independent of each other. We didn't know the other person was doing that for the environment. So we did that. We started doing that a couple of years ago. And we actually talked about this with my parents. So this is a picture of Carla Vanders right here, my mother, and Jim Vanders, my father, right there. And we just kind of discussed why we were doing this, because we were concerned about the environment. Here's something that we could do to help address it. That really struck a chord with my parents. They started eating more plant-based foods as well, which I'm really proud that they started doing that. And so the point of this little story here is that when talking with family and friends, it's really important to explain why climate change is important to you, and specifically use I statements. People don't necessarily like being told what to do. That can be kind of off-putting at times. So simply describing climate change is something that's important to me, and these are the things that I would like to do to make a difference. Because what's important to keep in mind is that your guys' voices are a lot more powerful and a lot more persuasive than you think, especially with family and friends, because they know you. They know you, they care about you, and they will listen to you. So your voice is potentially more persuasive than that of a politician, than that of a climate scientist, than that of someone on stage talking about climate change. So your voice is very powerful, and I advocate that you use it. Please don't be shy. This is a very important topic that we're addressing here. Okay, how about getting involved in your school? This is a pretty big one since we're all students here. What can we do on the school level to help make that more sustainable? Any ideas for that one? Yeah?
Try to get involved with organizations who are already working on things. Like at Calvin, we have sustainability coordinators or food recovery network.
That's fantastic, yeah, because those programs are already in place. All you have to do is just kind of sign up and get involved. So that's excellent, excellent. Any other ideas for on the school level, what we can do there? Yeah, over here?
For me, it'd be cool. We have like a core class that all freshmen have to take, and we thought it'd be cool if somehow we could get a part of that dedicated to teaching students how to use public transportation in the area, so that they get direct hands-on experience with that and can lower a bit of their carbon footprint as well.
That's great, yeah, educating the students is we have like a first-year seminar class at Hope College, and that could be like a good opportunity to share information about sustainable things going on campus. So that's a fantastic idea. Love that. How about one more for our school? Lots of things we can do. Our schools are, on the smaller end of colleges, but there's still a lot that we can do to make them more sustainable. They're not perfect, of course. What else? How about one more thing? Yeah.
Composting in the dorms.
Composting in the dorms, excellent. Is that happening at Calvin University right now? Okay, awesome. But like spreading awareness of that? Yeah, I saw your hand back here if you want
I
to
was
share.
just going to say like renewable energy sources, like solar panels or other things like automated lighting when you walk into a room instead of just having lights on all the time, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's excellent, because that's a great way to decrease our carbon footprint and certainly use less energy. Yeah, I love those. So in terms of what we can do at school, those are all great answers. I've talked about this quite a bit already, my involvement with Hope Advocates for Sustainability. Calvin University also has a similar program called Sustainability Fellows. So that's another avenue for getting involved. And those who are potentially listening to this on the live stream, in the off chance your school doesn't have an environmental or sustainability club, you can start one yourself. You have that power. Students and teachers are here to support ideas like that. So please don't be shy with starting new things. Okay, now we're expanding a little bit outside of just our academic sphere. How about things we can do to get involved in the broader community outside of our respective colleges and schools? Any ideas for that one? Yeah.
Like taking care of trash and stuff. My dad and I will go on walks like every couple of weeks and just pick up trash along the side of the road.
Oh yeah.
And it's a good way to like care for the community.
Absolutely.
And get other community members like involved and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to kind of like stack habits. We're already going for a walk, we might as well pick up trash. Me and my dad would do that, hiking trails in the woods and just bring a bag for that exact reason. So that's great. Love that answer. What else? What can we do in the broader community, not just in our schools?
Like, I was gonna say, like, propose, like, farming, like, law changes, regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe, like, asking, like, open grazing or something, so it's more sustainable, less emissions.
Yeah, perfect. So that could be something you can get involved in like city council or something and advocate for those changes. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Sometimes I grow too many vegetables in my garden, so I bring them to work.
Okay.
And then I share them with my coworkers.
That's excellent.
It decreases food waste, and people get nice, sustainable produce.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, decreasing food waste, but then also kind of promoting sustainable ways to get those vegetables, because you'll have to explain the story of like, I grow my own food, I have all this extra, so that's a good way to share information as well too. Yeah, those are great. A couple of examples. What I have done is speaking at city council meetings. So when I was at Hope College, the community energy plan for Holland, Michigan was being revised. And so I'd actually go to city council meetings and, hello, my name's Jacob, I'm a student at Hope College, I think that we should spend more resources on renewable energy sources. And since you guys are all college students, getting involved in that area would be very unique and excellent, and they'd be really happy to hear what you guys have to say. Additionally, in communities, there are various pre-existing organizations that are there to make our communities more sustainable. So for example, in Holland, Michigan, there's the Holland Climate Collaborative, and where I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, there is the Sustainable Living Association. So I encourage you to seek out opportunities like that. There are certainly organizations like this in Grand Rapids as well, since it's a fairly large metropolitan area. All right, so I'm actually very curious about this next one. What did you guys come up with for on the state level and beyond, even looking beyond just the communities that we live in? What can we potentially do at this level to make a difference? Is there something that we can do on this level? Yeah.
Advocate to your state reps and even federal reps.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, how would one potentially do that?
You can do it through like a letter writing campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent. Fantastic. Other ideas for state level? It's a great way to start off. Yeah.
We talked about like junior ranger badges and stuff along the lines of like state parks, because there's a lot of parks all over the United States, and just how we can start educating anyone who visits there through those types of resources.
Yeah, that'd be excellent, and good volunteer opportunities for college students as well. That's excellent. I love that idea. Any other things we can do on the state level and beyond? We're thinking pretty big right now. Yeah.
I was just thinking about the way that we vote in elections. You can vote with sustainability on your mind to make actions, because that's a huge way to affect our government.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys stole all my answers for this one. So the first ones I want to talk about was voting and contacting local representatives. So this is literally the ballot box that I use in Fort Collins, Colorado to vote. And so as the last person indicated, a lot of these decisions made about climate change and climate change policy is made on the governmental level. But what's important to keep in mind is that if you're 18 years or older, you can vote. You have the power to influence and decide who gets put into power. So I advocate that you use that power that you have. In other words, vote like your life depends on it, because in this case it kind of does. Also, contacting local representatives. This could be someone like your mayor in your hometown, all the way up to congressmen who represent Michigan over at Washington, D.C. And this can be simple as writing a letter, describing, climate change is important to me, and that this is something I consider when deciding to vote. And I did something similar to that pretty recently. I read 2 books written by Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, and I literally wrote them a letter discussing the climate change policies that they talked about in those books. So it can seem kind of weird writing a letter to these people, but you can do that, and I advocate that you use that voice that you have. Another example, too, is attending conferences, which you guys are all doing, which is excellent, because this is a great way to learn about different resources in your area, especially networking with other people that have common interests. And so as a scientist myself, I attend lots of conferences, whether it's sustainability conferences like this, or it might be chemistry conferences. And in this upcoming November, I'm attempting to go to the United Nations Climate Change Conference. It's an international conference in Dubai. So I hope that I have the opportunity to do that. So thank you for participating in that. Those were excellent answers. And so to wrap up, whether it is individual action, speaking with family and friends, making an impact at your school, engaging with your community, or getting involved in the state level and beyond, you can all make a difference and you can have an impact. And now this is climate change that we're talking about. This is potentially the biggest existential threat that is going to face our generation. But fortunately, as I emphasized earlier, the future has not been written yet, and there's still time to make a difference. And to do so, we need to be ambitious, we need to be bold, courageous, have hope, and most importantly, be optimistic about this, because we can make a difference and we do something about this. And so through this conference, we hope to give you the necessary skills to get involved and make your community, school, and beyond more sustainable as a way to fight the climate crisis. And so in order to accomplish this, there is a lot that we have to do. So without further ado, let's get to work. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for that good message, Jacob. And we have a few minutes here for questions and answers. So anybody out here have a question that you'd like to ask Jacob? Now would be a good chance. Just put up your hand.
Yeah, back there. Yeah.
What are the implications of your PhD work so far on solutions, after wildfire has damaged an area?
Yes, and the implications for it is we want to better predict how forests will recover after a wildfire. And so I specifically look at, I'm going to get into some chemistry, so bear with me, kind of what small metabolites like sugars and amino acids and proteins are in these soils, because you need that content in there for microbes to consume them in order for microbes to regrow, which then help trees regrow. So we're studying to see how the chemistry of the soil changes as a way to predict how well forests could recover. So you could sample a soil, see what kind of chemicals are present, see what type of food sources are there, as a way to kind of assess how long it might take for those forests to recover. But yeah, I'm right at the beginning of it. I started my PhD in 2021 in the spring, so I just finished my second year, so right at the beginning, but those are some of the implications and solutions we hope to provide. So, great question.
Jacob, I have a question.
Yes, Tom, what you got?
How on earth have you balanced your schoolwork, your climate action work, and having fun going rock climbing? Like, how? Maybe some tips for time management for the crowd.
That's a super good question. One is learning through experience for sure. The only way to figure out how to handle a busy schedule is to have one in the first place. But I'd say as a quick answer, I'd be happy to talk about this more throughout the conference more in depth. But I would recommend that you plan out your schedule on a weekly basis. Because if you just plan what you're going to do the next day, you often might get distracted by things that are just very urgent and due, but might not be in the long run actually that important. So if you plan things out on a weekly basis, you can make sure that you schedule time for exercise, schedule time to see friends, and really kind of help have a broader perspective and get you an idea of actually what is really worth prioritizing. So I'd recommend planning on a weekly basis. And then another thing that's really important in college that I didn't realize until after I graduated is recognizing good enough. Because often I was a type A student in college, and so I like to do everything to the fullest extent and do as best as possible on it. And when you have a lot of things, you simply can't do that. So recognizing when you've put enough effort for what you need to do is good enough, and you can move on to the next thing. Certain things like big exams, you have to prioritize a lot, but for more of the smaller tasks, it's really important to recognize when you've done enough for it, you can move on to something else. So, yeah. Very important skill to develop in college and in life afterwards. It's not like after college life gets that much simpler or less busy, so it's something that continues on. Yeah?
Do you have any recommendations for books or movies if you know any about climate change responding to it?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I definitely recommend the Encyclical on Climate Change by Pope Francis. In terms of movies, the story of plastic is very interesting. That talks about plastic pollution all across the world. It's not entirely environmental, but there's a documentary called Game Changers, which describes various benefits of plant-based foods, specifically from an athletic perspective, because it kind of dispels a lot of myths about not being able to get enough protein on a plant-based diet. But in that documentary, they discuss some of the environmental benefits as well. So I would recommend that, and I'd say those are the two right off the top of my head. And then the Lorax is always really good. It's an easy read, so I check that one out every once in a while. A great question. Yeah.
What are some resources that you recommend for keeping up to date on climate legislature or local climate organizations, things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would recommend, honestly, NPR has a lot of good programs that are discussing climate change. And an organization that is really helpful is called Citizens Climate Lobby. And so those are people, there's different chapters throughout the United States. I'm pretty sure there's one in Grand Rapids, there's one in Fort Collins where I live. And so it's a community of like-minded people that want to push sustainability within their communities individually, but then it's also a collective organization throughout the United States. So getting tapped into those people will provide ample opportunities to get involved in the community. So I check out the Citizens Climate Lobby and see what they have to offer. That's a great question. And then also, people at your school, such as like Tom or Michelle Gibbs at Hope College, these people that prioritize and focus on sustainability, they will have some good ideas as well. So just talking to people, that's where I would start. Great question.
Yeah, and related to the Citizen Climate Lobby, they're actually one of our conference sponsors, and we'll have an exhibit table here tomorrow, so you can connect with the Grand Rapids chapter tomorrow. Time for, one or two more. Go ahead.
I know you said you were going to talk about more like networking skills like later on, but we're more in a more anecdotal way. Were there any was there a specific moment within like networking within this area of sustainability where you felt like you met someone and it like really helped you get involved in your area?
Oh wow.
Or anything like that stands out?
Yeah, so I'd say the reason why I even had the opportunity to give a talk like this today was because I joined Hope Advocates for Sustainability. Whoever said yes, that's the correct answer. Because you meet so many different people through networking through that. You meet one person that introduces you to two. So that's a great way to spread your network, and they're all focused on sustainability and protecting the environment. So it's all within the realm of being eco-friendly. So that helps spread your network, and then also, when you get involved in something like that, you often adopt a project to work on, and then through that experience, that's what helps you develop like necessary skills and good communication. Because while classes are great, classes can only teach you so much, and a lot more of those kind of soft skills, event planning, how to communicate well, that's kind of learned just through experience. So getting involved as soon as possible is the best way to learn. So I would start definitely in terms of the most important interaction was probably Michelle Gibbs and then Dr. Stephen Boma-Prediger, who taught my Earth and Ethics class. So people right at your colleges where you go can make a huge impact on you being able to get more involved. So, yeah, right here.
What drives your passion for sustainability? Besides, of course, like the view for it itself.
Talked about that for a long time, so let me try to keep this short. One of the things that I really like about it is, one, it's very interdisciplinary. So I'm a chemist, And I love chemists, I like working with chemists, but sometimes that can get a little old after a while. And so it's really fun that regardless of what you're studying, whether it's journalism or atmospheric science or sustainable fashion or English or Spanish, it doesn't matter what you're studying, all of it has a role in helping sustainability. So that's what's fantastic, because no one is left out in this pursuit. And then on a more philosophical level, what I really appreciate sustainability is it's the quest for incremental and continuous improvement. How can we make our society more equitable? How can we conserve water? How can we make sure that we protect this area for future generations and make it more sustainable? And on a personal level, I really strive for just personal growth and continuous learning. And so I like that kind of the focus of sustainability is also like that, in the sense that we're always striving to do better and improve. So a combination of everyone's involved, everyone's welcome, and kind of just that continuous improvement. I find that very, very motivating and very fulfilling. And then I can talk about that for an hour more, but I'll stop right there before I think of something else instead. I appreciate that question.
I think that's a good word to end on, Jacob. Let's give Jacob van der Roost another round of applause. And Jacob is kind enough to not just be here for our keynote lecture, but will be here throughout the entire conference. So you will have other opportunities to speak with him, ask questions if you didn't get a chance here right now. But just a couple kind of logistical notes, things that you can be looking forward to this evening and then tomorrow as well. So I love that there was a mention of clothing swap. We're going to have a thrift table. If you have something in your dorm room that you are ready to pass along to someone else who might appreciate it more, you can bring that tomorrow. We'll have a thrift table set up out here in the lobby. Also, we'd love for this conference to be participatory for all of you, not just you receiving information, but having opportunities to contribute as well. So if there's a particular area of sustainability, something related to the environment that you are knowledgeable about and would be excited to share for just 5 minutes, think of it as like a mini TED Talk. There's a QR code on the first page of your program. There's also a sign-up sheet out on the registration table for an open mic time that we'll be having tomorrow afternoon called Say What? That's SEY, Sustainability, Education, and You. Okay, what's coming up next? Next, you can leave this room and use the restroom. There should hopefully be a mocktail bar set up out there, so grab yourself a mocktail. And then we're going to have a little activity led by Ben Gritter, who's our Calvin Cohorts coordinator here, to have a chance to kind of process and think through all the good things that Jacob just shared with us. After that will be the after party over at the Bunker Interpretive Center, over at the Preserve. And so let's be especially good hosts to our Hope guests and help them find their way over there, because all you Calvin folk ought to know where that is. And then finally tomorrow we will regather at 8 o'clock for breakfast in the undercraft of the chapel, which is a fancy word for the basement. So without, look at that, 7:59, pretty good. Go ahead, use the restroom, grab a mocktail, and get ready for our mixer time.